Hi, welcome back. So far, we've talked about why bullying at work matters and what it actually looks like. But in this lecture, we're going to focus on the impact. What happens when bullying is allowed to continue in a workplace, both to the people being targeted and to the organization as a whole? Now, some of this might feel heavy. That's because it is. Workplace bullying isn't just annoying or uncomfortable. It has real, lasting consequences on mental health, physical health, job performance, morale, retention, even your bottom line. And unfortunately, a lot of those costs go unnoticed until they become really hard to ignore. So in this lecture, we're going to break it down into 4 parts. First, we'll look at how bullying affects people, the mental and physical toll it can take. Then we'll move into how it affects teams, things like morale, productivity, and absenteeism. From there, we'll talk about the business impact, turnover, financial loss, and legal risk. And finally, we'll ground it all with a real-world example that shows how bad it can get when bullying goes unchecked. Let's get into it. Let's start with the human cost. If you've ever been bullied at work or even just seen someone go through it, you know how much it gets under the skin. It's not just something people can just shake off when they clock out. It follows them home. It affects their sleep. It messes with their health. People who are bullied often deal with anxiety, depression, panic attacks, even PTSD symptoms. That's not exaggeration. Some studies have shown that the trauma from workplace bullying can be just as severe as other major life traumas. And it's not just psychological. The physical symptoms are real too. High blood pressure, chronic headaches, digestive issues, insomnia. Over time, that level of stress wears a person down. They might start calling in sick more often or showing up but totally drained. Here's a key point. The damage doesn't always show up right away. Someone might seem fine on the outside, but still be going through a spiral internally. They might keep working just to survive, but that survival mode has a cost. Their creativity drops, their confidence crumbles, their focus disappears, and eventually, a lot of people just burn out. Now let's zoom out a bit and talk about what that does to teams and culture. Imagine working in a place where someone on your team is constantly being talked down to or excluded or yelled at in meetings. Even if you're not the target, it affects you. It creates tension. You start walking on eggshells. You spend more time trying to avoid conflict than doing your actual job. This is where we see things like disengagement and absenteeism. People withdraw, sometimes emotionally, sometimes literally. They stop speaking up. They stop offering ideas. Some start taking more sick days, and the overall mood of the team takes a hit. Research backs this up. One study found that 80% of employees who experienced or witnessed bullying spent time worrying about it when on the clock. Over half said they purposefully reduced their effort. That's not laziness, that's a stress response. When people don't feel safe, they stop showing up fully. And then there's turnover, which might be the most visible sign of a toxic culture. When people can't take it anymore, they leave. And they don't always tell you why. They might say it's for a better opportunity, but often the real reason is, I couldn't work there anymore. And if your company tolerates bullying, it's usually your best people, the ones with options, who leave first. This is where the business cost starts piling up. Think about how much it costs to lose an experienced employee, hiring a replacement, training them, getting them up to speed, not to mention the knowledge and relationships you lose when someone walks out that door. According to a 2019 Society for Human Resource Management study, culture-driven turnover in U.S. businesses cost over $223 billion in just 5 years. And bullying is one of the biggest contributors to that kind of toxic culture. And it doesn't stop at turnover. Bullying drives up healthcare costs, too. People who are chronically stressed tend to use more sick leave, more doctor's visits, and the more mental health support. If your company offers insurance or wellness benefits, you're footing that bill whether you see it or not. You also lose out on productivity. When someone's being bullied, they're not doing their best work, and neither is the rest of the team if they're distracted or afraid. Even small dips in morale can translate into big dips in output, especially if they spread across a whole department or office. And then there's the legal risk. In the United States, there are no federal laws against generic workplace bullying. But if that behavior overlaps with harassment or discrimination, say someone is targeted because of their race, gender, or age, it can cross the line into illegal territory. That opens the door to lawsuits, EEOC complaints, settlements, and all the costs that come with them. And in Europe, the bar is even higher. In countries like France, Belgium, and Sweden, companies are legally required to protect employees from psychological harm at work. That includes bullying. If they don't and someone gets hurt, they can be fined or even prosecuted. Which brings us to a real-world example that shows just how far this can go. Back in the late 2000s, France Telecom, a major telecom company, was restructuring and trying to push out thousands of employees. But instead of offering buyouts or layoffs, leadership pressured managers to make people quit voluntarily. They were told to make work unbearable. And they did. Employees were shuffled constantly, given impossible tasks, publicly shamed, isolated from their teams. Over time, dozens of workers began to show signs of serious mental distress. And then the suicides started. Over 30 employees took their own lives. Many left notes blaming their treatment at work. Eventually, the company and several of its top executives were brought to court and found guilty of institutional harassment. It was the first time in France that leaders were criminally convicted for systemic bullying. The case shocked Europe and sent a message to companies everywhere. Toxic culture isn't just a bad look, it's a liability, a legal one, and a moral one too. Most companies won't end up in court like France Telecom, but the lesson applies everywhere. If bullying is ignored, the consequences are real. Whether it's quiet attrition, sick days piling up, reputations getting trashed, or managers burning through teams, there's a cost, and it adds up fast. So to wrap this up, bullying at work takes a serious toll on people and on the business. It harms health. It drives good people out. It drags down morale and performance. And it creates financial, legal, and reputational risks that most companies can't afford. If you're in a leadership or HR role, part of your job is to see the whole picture. And now you've seen it. This isn't a soft issue. It's a hard cost. In the next lecture, we're going to look at the legal landscape around bullying, what your responsibilities are under United States and European laws, and why it's so important to have the right policies in place. See you next time.